All right, thank you so much for being here today, everyone. Before we get started on the panel, I just wanted to kind of acknowledge the elephant in the room, which is that we all had to make a difficult decision and cross a picket line to get to the conference. And I know that felt a little weird for people who are advocating on behalf of an industry with a lot of its own problems. So I just wanted to take a second to give you some context, what's going on there. There are 2,700 workers on strike in the greater Bay Area. The negotiations with the Marriott have broken down. There are strikes happening elsewhere in the country as well. The workers are seeking livable wages, health care, improved working conditions, and strengthened job security. So we all made a choice to come here, and that's fine, but I think if you have stayed at a Marriott or you're an SPG member and you can contact Marriott and let them know about your concerns and that you stand in solidarity with the workers, that's a great idea. Jennifer, did you want to say anything on behalf of New West?
Yeah, just on behalf of New West Summit, we truly empathize with what's happening, and we are unfortunately unable, with 20 hours notice, to move the event, though we would have, and I want to state that we would have moved the event. And so we've been as supportive as we can be. We've been providing them with lunch and some additional resources. Our PR team is going to be working with them outside of the event to help them make their point a little better heard in a way that's not disruptive to businesses, but helps them get their contracts and things that they need. So again, we're very supportive of what's happening, and me as a person felt very terrible crossing the picket line myself. We appreciate all of you for putting your business first, because we're all here just trying to make great businesses and prevent problems like that from happening. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. All right, so welcome to our panel. I'm going to introduce myself real quick, and then I'm going to go through and introduce the panelists, and then we're going to have a lively discussion that I'm really excited about. So I'm Amanda Conley. I am a founder and partner at a law firm called Brand and Branch. We work almost exclusively with cannabis companies, and we provide intellectual property services to help companies protect their IP and expand their presence through IP licensing agreements and mergers and acquisitions. I also co-founded the National Cannabis Bar Association. Any attorneys in the room who aren't yet members of the NCBA, please come see me afterward. We would love to have you. It's a great networking and opportunity and resource for attorneys serving this nascent industry. So, without further ado, immediately to my right here, we have Sharif El-Sisi. He is the Director of Business Development at Trees.io and Eden Enterprises. If you don't know, you should, but Trees is a highly successful enterprise software for cannabis retailers. And I was looking at their website, and it has some amazing testimonials from happy customers, including the others are like a slice of pizza and you're the whole pie. And then my favorite, after watching their demo, this is better than porn. So, great job. Maybe ask for the demo, I guess.
You guys can sign up in the back for demos. Just let me know if
demos.
We're available. Our office is actually 2 blocks away from here, so
there you go.
We can get it now live if you'd like.
A live demo that's better than porn, yeah. So Sharif has 12 years of plant-touching experience in the industry, and we're really excited to have his perspective on both the plant-touching and ancillary side of the cannabis businesses. And Sharif, like Ryan, who we'll talk about in a second, is highly involved with local politics around cannabis, and so we'll learn more about his experience and his recommendations on that front throughout our discussion. To Sharif's right, we have Dr. Bao Lei. Dr. Lei is the CEO of BAS Research. BAS is a manufacturing facility in Berkeley. It provides white labeling services for third parties, really high-end, high-quality products in manufacturing. Dr. Lei is a father and a caregiver to a child who's on the autism spectrum, and that's actually how he came to work in the cannabis industry, so he's going to have some interesting things to share with us. He's an advocate for the entourage effect, ratios work, and dosing slow and steady. And I can attest that BAS has really raised the level of professionalism in this industry, and it takes a highly scientific approach to the development and manufacture of cannabis products. And Dr. Lei himself has a wealth of business and scientific knowledge to share, and so we're really excited to have him on this panel. To his right, we have Ryan Miller. He is the Executive VP for Operations at OMG Farms. And Ryan has an important and unique perspective. He's actually a U.S. Army veteran. He's heavily involved in federal and local state advocacy, as we all should be. And we're looking forward to hearing about his experience with this and also tips for our own advocacy as this industry unfolds and becomes more and differently regulated. Ryan also manages several hemp products out east, and so it'll be helpful to have his perspective not only on the California market and not only on cannabis, but also on other markets and hemp as well. To Ryan's right, we have Jennifer Sanders. Jennifer is founder and CEO of CNS Equity Partners and co-founder of Aura Ventures. She is a philanthropist and provided the largest donation to medical cannabis research to date in North America, for which I know we can all be incredibly grateful. Thank you, Jennifer. She believes that cannabis is one of many medicinal herbs and a key component of holistic health. And she also really strongly believes in impact investment. And so I'm sure we'll get to hear more about this philosophy on the panel. And last but definitely not least, we have Alexis D'Angelo. Alexis is Director of Sales and Compliance at Dr. Kirkland Therapeutics, a popular cannabis-infused topical company that many of you are likely familiar with, or should be if you're not. Alexis is also the member and outreach liaison for CCIA, representing Southern California. And like Dr. Lay, her personal journey is what led her to work in cannabis. She found herself, like so many, a victim to big pharma and knew that the only way to break free was to incorporate cannabis medicine into her life. And she's now devoted herself to advocating both for the rescheduling of cannabis and the elimination of the stigma that remains unfairly associated with this plant. And we're grateful for the unique perspective that she brings to this panel. So, round of applause for our panelists. Thank you. We have a really stellar team up here, so I'm excited for this discussion. So let's get started. So we framed this panel as a panel about failure, not just because we wanted to air all of our dirty laundry, but because we wanted to tell you about learning from failure and growing as a result of it. And particularly in the context of a volatile and incredibly highly regulated market. What does failure look like? How can we learn from that? And how can we move forward in a market that, it's not going to change anytime soon? So first question, if you're willing to share, where have you misstepped in growing your business, and what did you learn from that? We'll start with you, Sharif.
I'd be happy to share some missteps or failures that we've had over the years. So California regulated the retail operations in cannabis before regulating manufacturing and cultivation for the most part. So at the first kind of whispers and signs that cultivation regulation was going to be coming down the pipeline, we wanted to secure an enhanced supply chain for our retail operations. So we were looking and exploring in Humboldt, but we didn't believe that that was actually a feasible place to commercially cultivate cannabis long term. So a small little county named Calaveras wrote an ordinance, and me and my team kind of treated it as if it was a new era, and we rushed in. We had 4 properties. We fully developed all 4 of the properties, 2 acres of canopy spread across 4 parcels. We spent a pretty penny, and because we didn't pay enough attention to the political climate, and we didn't use our influence as operators effectively enough, the ordinance was essentially overturned and a cannabis ban was enacted. So, the lesson to be learned is, though you'd like to move forward at all times and you'd like to progress as fast as possible, you have to measure and calculate the risk. You have to understand the political climate and the licensing climate as it unfolds. Many people, even in the Salinas area, had rushed in there because there was going to be large kind of cultivation operations allowed, but they overlooked some of the taxing issues there. So when you're expanding your business, you need to be very calculated and understand what's to come, not just what's in place today. So that's a big one. Cost us a lot of time, cost us a lot of energy, and I lost a few friends over it also. Yeah.
Sorry to hear that. Thank you for sharing that with us. Ryan, same question to you. Missteps, what'd you learn?
Yeah, actually, it's a great point. You talk about this industry, and most businesses, you want to be very, very proactive. You want to try to anticipate everything that's coming, pool your resources, and drive forward, because in most industries, you can get a reasonable forecast of how things are going to play out. It's very difficult. And actually, we were fortunate that we didn't take some missteps of where we decided to base our geography, because we slowed down, and it actually, it was because of other projects we were involved in, and we were focused on getting capital for those. And I'm going to talk, actually, capital and access to capital is one of our missteps. But that slowed us down, and actually was very beneficial, blessing in disguise. that it allowed us to see how certain geographies that looked like prime ideal geographies to set an operation up in actually were turning around and burning the folks that had been very proactive and rushed in. So fortunately, because of others' missteps, we were able to, fortunately, when we went out to figure out where we were going to locate, we located in Oakland, we were able to learn from others, so that was good. I think, and I've been involved in a few different cannabis operations, ancillary, and most recently OMB Farms. But one of the things that I think was a big issue for us, and again, it turned out to some ways to be a blessing in disguise, was access to capital. Everybody comes in, especially this industry, you see all the money, all the talk that's going on out there. And as you're coming in, you're saying, oh, wow, capital it's going to be really easy to raise money if I have a good team and a really good idea. But then you find out there's a lot of nuance, and a lot of that new money coming in is, because the investors that are putting it in is getting funneled to certain places where there's just a little bit more confidence. So someone that doesn't know anything about cannabis, are they going to invest in a couple of brands out in California that, might be phenomenal and they hear good things about, but again, at the end of the day, it's their money. They're not exactly, they don't know the first thing about cannabis other than what they're kind of getting pitched to them either through certain types of media or through, the big investment houses. And then it's just, they're most likely going to wind up pushing their money to where they have a little bit more confidence. So actually a lot of the money went to Canada, and there's probably some Canadians in here. So we made a lot of, again, decisions and operational decisions based on thinking we would focus on fundraising and getting capital rather than focusing on building out our operations and building out a good foundation. And, frankly, caused us to miss a lot of opportunities that if we had just focused on operations, which probably would have allowed us to have easier access to capital fundraising because we had better metrics to show, we missed out on some opportunities. Fortunately, it's been such a mess in 2018 that there's still a lot of opportunity available, so it didn't throw us too much off track. But that's probably a big misstep that us and other cannabis companies have taken.
Yes,
Thanks.
I'm sure you're not alone in that. So sort of a twist on that question, but similar. If you could do one thing over again, Dr. Lay, we'll take it with you first. What would it be and why?
First of all, I want a show of hands here. How many people here at this speaking event have already had their licenses? Raise your hands. And how many people are still in the process of getting their license? All right. So the hands that went up, my advice would be hire consultants. Hire the right people, hire the right lobbyists, hire the right attorneys. And if whether sector that you're going to be embarking in, you gotta hire the right people. When we started in 2014 trying to learn how to do it the right way, looking back with your experience and should I go there, should I go here, and then putting money preemptively into a cultivation site, then you're not going to get the permit. That's a lot of money lost in time. So what we learned in the industry as a whole is if you have the right team, if you have the right attorneys, you have the right lobbyists, that's why we're sitting here as panelists, is that we want to share those mistakes and misguidance from other people. Even if investors come in and they say, well, we want to do this and this, well, great, can you do it? Sure. But if you can't, then you miss out on a lot of opportunities. And if you don't have the right consultants to get you to the right city staff, know your city staff and your counties very well. Chocolate helps. A couple of freebies helps even better. I don't know about the porn stuff you're talking about, but it depends on what you want to do. But city staff, city managers, fire departments, and security, right? So please get to know the city staff, because as an industry, you want to teach people why we're here as operators, right? What we want to do, who we want to help, and our mission is to help other companies become successful, because we can't do it by ourselves as a whole here, and we want to have a unity in California and abroad to be able to show mayors and city council and everyone else that we're the good guys. We're all good guys sitting here. And if we do it together as of one voice, as of one rhythm, as of one intention, then they start listening to us and say, yeah, there's actually great operators here that want to be in this space to do the right thing. So that will be my biggest thing to share is to hire the right people as consultants to do it easier, because that's their job. As a consultant, they go in there, they know who to talk, what to say, and what to push. And if there's 10 people they're representing, that's 10 new permits, that's 10 new licenses, that's 10 new taxable income to the municipality. That is a one group unity instead of a whole bunch of different people coming in there and promising the city a lot of money and a lot of return, and it doesn't happen because you don't have the funding to finish it. So that would be my point on that one.
Excellent, thank you. And Jennifer, if you could do one thing over again, what would it be and why?
Do everything over again. I've made every single mistake. I got my ass kicked the first 2 years. I have my team that's been here since day one, sitting here, partners. I did everything wrong, and that's why my consulting fees now are really expensive. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Everyone that just came in, have a seat. There's a lot of seats here. This is actually the biggest panel I've seen, so I guess people want to know how not to be like us, for sure.
You were wise to come in
but
here.
I think one thing, I went too fast. I was overzealous. I was overconfident. I thought that my background in regulatory risk management, compliance, coming into a highly regulated industry, I had the purest intentions of, getting great product out affordably and creating these massive structures that I've been able to do for other companies as a consultant. And I didn't really respect the challenges of working in this industry with the regulatory risk specifically. I would say the thing that I encourage everyone is just be really thoughtful on how you're creating your businesses and why and what you're creating and what your products are, because if you are in this business for the money, there are a lot of other places to be that you can make a lot more money. Truly, I mean, trust me. You have to really love the plant. You have to think of the plant as a component of health. You have to look at this as how do we get this medicine out there to people, hopefully affordably, with great packaging, great brands, great message, a great team, ambassadors. And you really have to have good ethics behind it, because I think what we're approaching in this second wave of, I think, the cannabis rush period, I look at everything from an international perspective. I don't really dabble specifically just in California or just in Oregon or just in Canada. I'm looking at the whole marketplace. This next 5-year run in this industry is going to be really dynamic. You have time. You are not going to miss out. Okay? Everyone's going to tell you you're going to miss out. You got to get in the wave right now. No. Calm down. Get capitalized. Have a good idea. Do it right. Do it with people you trust. Do it with people you love. You have time.
That's really excellent advice, and advice that as an attorney I give frequently. Yes, slow down. Do it right. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. And it's been fascinating to watch, but incredibly difficult for the actual operators to see what in many cases, and in California in particular, is a broad and highly robust industry suddenly get regulated, essentially for the first time. And that's been quite a process to see happen in California, and I know that it's caused significant difficulties for cannabis companies, more in California probably than other states, but certainly throughout the U.S. as these regulations have come on board. So, Ryan, curious to hear from you, what do you think are some effective ways of engaging government and regulatory bodies as we try to navigate this process of, over-regulation, let's say, for the first time?
So I think Bao, he had mentioned engage your local, your local county and city staff, and again, not just the cannabis folks or not just the elected folks, but the fire department, anybody who's going to be involved in this process, environmental folks, and really the best way to do that is to just make friends by asking questions. They want you to ask them questions. Because not only does it show that you are engaged and you want clarification and you're getting good information out of it, but it's kind of an easy way if you're like, well, how do I network with this, city commissioner? How do I network with this local cannabis czar, I guess, for lack of a better term? And a lot of times it's just, and if you can do it in person, great. Otherwise, by email, ask them a question, ask them a follow-on. Don't be afraid of being annoying. Unless, we're all adults here. I can judge if you're being annoying in general with your questions. But, ask those follow-on questions and try to create more of a friendly dialogue. Because then when you do have certain issues, we had a certain issue, and we have a very good working relationship with, our local here in Oakland. Nancy Marcus is phenomenal in the Oakland office there, very responsive. And same thing with the individual at the state level that is responsible for our inspection, permitting, and that whole process. Hey, we had some issues, and we, needed a little bit of, I don't want to say help, but, maybe extra time for something. And I just reached out and I said, hey, I don't know if it's not specified, if you can give extra time for the regs, this, that, or the other thing. And they worked with us to make sure that this was not an issue, within the time frame we had, without getting into too many details. So that's, one way to do is engage those folks, on an individual basis, but also engage the overall, BCC, the CDPH, all these entities, these state entities, when they're in your locality doing their generally quarterly talks. And even better is if you can form a coalition with other folks in your geographic area. And there's a few people I see in here that meet up at Magnolia Dispensary in Oakland. And we were getting together every Monday, a group of folks within the industry to strategize, to first go line by line. We would stay there, 2.5 hours, going line by line, or section by section, through whatever the next meeting coming up was, and getting everyone's feedback, and actually coordinating across all of us a plan of, hey, this is my issue. OMG, one of our issues is recycling. So I'm going to bring that up in my public comment, and I'll also go public comment about someone else's issue, and you do the same for us. So we're hitting over and over again, and we're really making clear and speaking with one voice, from the local level, and then overall from a state level, as to what we need to see change to make sure this industry is as successful as possible. So again, get together with other business owners. This is a time to be collaborative right now in this industry. It is a time to make sure too that we are transitioning from that old industry to this new one. I mean, there's a lot of folks out there who were or currently are employed by industry that will not be as it changes and corporatizes and things like that. And if we can, again, act together as a collective body, we can make sure that those folks who are going to have, just by nature and by habit, a harder time transitioning, they can transition. It's very important that we bring them and that expertise into this new cannabis paradigm that we're getting into. So.
Thank you. Yes, excellent. One thing that we've seen in a lot of other states and that California is sort of just at the beginning of is that we get these regulations. We got our first round of the emergency regulations, and everyone said, okay, all right, let's figure this out, let's comply. And then, oh, wait, now there's a whole second round, and those are not yet final, and what's that going to be? And then we've got pending bills and potential legislative changes, right? So there's a bit of whiplash, and it's hard to keep up with everything. And hopefully some of the changes come from regulators hearing our concerns and making course corrections, and others come from, following in the footsteps of other states, which may or may not be missteps. We'll see. But Sharif, I'm curious what you think. How do we sort of gain insight into what our collective future holds as the regulators start to figure it out?
I think there's a big problem in cannabis in California, in the industry, and it's procrastination. So, if you operate a business and you're waiting till January or December 31st to enact some changes, or waiting till June 30th to worry about your supply chain, you're going to get left behind. And if you take a more proactive approach, you can keep a pulse on what's coming down the pipeline. So state level politics are shifting, and it really doesn't take much energy or much effort or much resources to keep a pulse on what's happening in Sacramento. And if you are a well-capitalized group, you can enact serious change. We just saw a major delivery software company spend under $200,000, and they were able to remove local control and allow for deliveries across city lines without requiring a permit. And that's a huge, huge change. I mean, that's local cities losing some of their rights to a state regulation. And there's even been other instances where major shifts have occurred. So if you can afford to spend those kind of lobbying dollars, still be involved. Be involved in CCIA. Be involved in a local stakeholders group. Get active. Because not only can you figure out what's coming down the pipeline, but 9 times out of 10 you could affect change. And if you are well organized, you could probably drive the process. So being proactive instead of procrastinating is another one to take home with you today if you're an operator.
This is really interesting because we have sort of two minds on this panel, right? Sharif is saying, you know, go ahead, push the envelope, get ready to challenge things. And Jennifer's saying, hang on, you're not going to miss out. Do it right. Do it slowly. And I think, you know, I mean, we can debate this, but I think both are true. And I think that there are, you know, we have space for all types of approaches in this industry too, right? One interesting thing to me as an attorney about your point, Sharif, is that you often can't challenge regulatory enforcement unless they enforce against you in the first place. You can't challenge hypothetical enforcement. So to that point, if you take Jennifer's approach, you're not going to be in the best position to do that challenge. And so if you are a company that has the funds and can be more aggressive and wants to be at the front lines, that's a better approach. I think both are absolutely valid.
I like giving my money away to charity. I don't like giving it away to fight people. It's just, litigation is very expensive, and you know, and that's why I always look at, you know, is California the place that you really want to be working in right now in this space, or do they need a little more time to get some maturity? Maybe this isn't the right state for you if you don't have deep pockets and you have lobbyists and you don't really know what you're doing. Probably not the best state for you. It's going to be very expensive. There are some other opportunities in the United States and Canada and other countries that are just wanting to grow and flourish this industry, and a little more safe to do it in. I'm not saying safe by any means, but I'm just saying a little easier. I'm tired of fighting. I want to make a lot of money and hire lobbyists and go fight for those things, but right now, let's go in places that want our business and want our plant.
And I think we need both, right? We need folks who
everyone.
are waiting, and we need folks who are pushing the envelope, or we're not going to get that change. So I'm actually really glad that we have both perspectives sitting on this panel. Alexis, let's hear from you. What thoughts do you have to contribute, not necessarily to this debate in particular, but on the regulatory side?
For me, I think that you have to tell your story. You have to get involved. You have to show up. If you don't show up, then nobody hears you. And telling your story makes it personal. So if you go to a city council meeting or to a neighborhood council meeting, you know, let them understand that where you're coming from, what you intend to do, and just be supportive of what their requirements are. Some jurisdictions have bans. So I would say look at what they do allow and then easily work your way in through it. You know, CCIA is always great to have an organization behind you. You know, we are one of the largest organizations in the state of California. But again, it's just, you know, use your voice, use your story, and that will get you a long way.
Thank you. Really interesting perspectives. Thank you. I didn't know that question would trigger so much. I appreciate that. No fighting, no fighting. So, you know, given what we're talking about, this highly regulated and volatile nature of this industry, of course, I'm biased here, but I think a lot of you would agree with me that having a good legal team and focusing on compliance is really crucial. So, Jennifer, how much should companies expect to spend on legal or compliance?
A lot.
Agreed.
A lot. I was savvy enough with just my experience to be able to understand a lot of these rules and regulations and complexities. That's an expensive task alone for your council. Structuring your businesses properly, having great tax preparers and advisors for you to stay in the white and not operate in the gray, especially if you're building a brand. Just want to be real. There are ways to do our business in the gray. There are ways that we can do the business in the light more so. And so take that time, spend that extra money to protect your investment. To answer the question, I wouldn't dare enter this industry with less than $1 million allocated to start a brand, and allocating 10% of that at minimum for legal, at minimum. And that is just something I think that is maybe abrasive, and most of you guys are taking a laugh because we've already spent that. You guys are already. I can see 5 people in the room that have spent.
They're laughing because Sharif is saying more even.
Well, I'm saying at bare minimum. That's just for structuring and basic things. I don't know what everyone's doing. If you're doing cultivation, that's different. If you're, you know, launching, you know, something smaller, it depends on your business. Always depends on your business.
Yeah, absolutely.
But a lot. And I mean a lot.
A competitive application process is a very, very expensive.
Well, a lot of people can do their
procedure.
own. Like I've done our own licenses and things like that. And so it depends on where you are. If you're,
How much do you charge for a competitive application process for a dispensary?
well, I don't do those services anymore, but I would probably charge right around $100,000.
There you go.
So yeah, I think it would start there. But not everyone in the room is going to apply for licenses. There's other ancillary businesses here. And even if you're not applying for a license, I think you should be well funded, regardless, just to manage the turbulence of this industry.
And don't forget, I'm just going to throw this in there. You know, if obviously we're all, you know, leading or founders of businesses up here, and there's many of you out in the room. But like you said, we don't have time. We do have time. Hey, something you can do in the meantime is go work for a company that is well capitalized and doing really well, and actually get through the growing pains as, you know, I mean, you're in it, but more as an observer where there's less on your shoulders. So then when that time is right, you'll be able to go and execute. And hopefully by then, the industry will have streamlined a lot more, at least in California and federally.
Yeah, thank you. Alexis, what's been your experience
I
with
was going to say, I definitely echo what Ryan is saying. If you can't, I personally believe you need to start off with a minimum of $2.5 million, just because, depending on what sector you're going into, just because you have to have money for marketing, you have to have money for quality employees. Quality means money, and you can't get what you're wanting unless you have the money in order to pay for quality staff.
I would just challenge that only because raising capital at that pre-valuation, pre-revenue side is going to be really expensive, and it's much harder to do right now in the VC, and raising that much is actually challenging for a lot of people in this room. So starting with $1 million and proving some success and getting somewhere is I think a better strategy. And then yeah, you're going to need 2, 5, 10, 15 million. Absolutely. You need a lot of money in this industry.
I'm thinking more, I live in Los Angeles, which is a very...
Also cheap.
Okay. But I believe, you know, being well-funded as much as you can and really have that bucket of money just in case things go south, because they will go south, and you know, just be prepared.
Thank you. I want to talk about, before we sort of go back more general, I want to talk about sort of a specific problem that some of the regulations have caused, and there are many. But let's talk about sourcing and testing biomass. So this has become pretty difficult. Dr. Lay, what are the most challenging experiences that you've had in this arena?
I think I want to go straight to the solution. Because I think we want to
Excellent.
know how to solve it. Right?
Great. Solve it.
So as you know, a grower can grow and use different type of nutrients and supplements and different pesticides and insecticides. In my experience, we start with one grower and you test it with one lab, vet the lab out first. Make sure that they have their certification, their license, their science team, turnaround time, all that. Then when you do an R&D testing and actually taking that product into, in my specific industry as a manufacturer, to oil, use the same lab to test it again. Then when you make products or other people buy products from you, advise them to use exactly the same lab again for their state compliance testing, so that the same UPLC, the same aspect, the same GC touches that product with the same SOPs and the same science over and over again. So we've had a lot of learning lessons where we're buying a lot of biomass, testing for a certain facility and testing it, and then someone buys the oil and goes to LA and buys it for a different lab, and it's 10%, 20% variances. So there's no equalization right now between testing labs in California and abroad. But if we stick together, and that's partnership, right? You gotta go to that lab, you gotta send your chief science officer there and talk to their facility and see what they're doing, and all the way through, because at the end of the day, who's using your product? Consumers. They need and deserve the right to have clean, pesticide-free, and healthy products. At the end of the day, it's your job to figure that out. Right? And how you figure it out is have the right testing partners to do the test the right way and keep that product consistent, so this water is clean and healthy for someone that wants to buy it. Sorry, a little passionate about that.
We like your passion.
That's what I do. Yeah, so.
Ryan.
I was going to say, plus that, you know, is how we're going to have to, especially these early days where the black market is probably as strong as it's been the past, 15, 20 years. That's how we're really going to have to differentiate while the regulations are still and the taxes are still high. And yes, they're going to go down, but they're not going to go down that much. It's not like all of a sudden we're going to be competitive cost-wise with the black market. So we really need to make sure that our process.
Last little thing here. Anyone wants to be an investor right now in the sector, invest to a freaking lab. Because flower market went down. Oil market's going down. Lab testing fees going up. So you guys do the math about that graphic. So if you want to invest in anything, invest in the testing facilities and support them. Get them more equipment, get more faster turnaround time. The lead times are 7 to 10 days. Are you kidding me? Like, that's too long. We have to go be faster than that. And support the labs. So.
Free investment tip for all of you here. All right. So I want to talk about collaboration again. You know, I do a lot of work with companies who have brands and often identify infringement. And what I both love and can't stand about this industry is that when our clients come to us and have found that someone has infringed their brand, 7 times out of 10, their response is, should I merge with them? They seem nice. No, that's not how you pick your business partners. I really love the impulse, but no. But in all seriousness, it is really important to be collaborative in this industry. And we heard from Ryan a little bit about the work going on at Magnolia. I know that Alexis is working with CCIA to do membership and outreach. Sharif, how else do you see this happening, and why is it so important?
You know, being involved in trees was really a decision about collaboration. You know, what the early stages of the software were built on were the ideas and practices that we developed over 15 years. We were like, as our plant touching side, one of our business units is Garden of Eden. It's been in operation for 15 years, one of the longest running cannabis businesses in the country. So our knowledge over 15 years is essentially built into the software, and that's why we have wide adoption. So it was as much a business decision as it was about ensuring that the industry was going to be successful, ensuring that these small businesses were going to be able to compete with large, well-capitalized enterprise competition that was going to be moving in. So, you know, that was our means and our mechanism to collaborate. And as a company, we have every intention of continuing to support those small businesses while also providing the tools for those enterprises, just as an entire industry, getting everybody on the same playing field and helping everybody grow, because you know the mission of my mission in cannabis is to spread it as much as possible. So we're doing it by growing plants, by manufacturing quality products. We're also doing it by helping other businesses do the same thing and get cannabis into as many hands as possible, because I hope everyone in the audience actually believes it, but cannabis is a magic plant, and it is seriously medicine, and we need to help, we have to help collaborate with each other to spread it as much as possible.
So many applause lines on this panel. You guys are impressive. So,
There's a lot of seats too, guys. Come up
yeah,
here.
there
a
still
ton
are
of
seats. Please
ton
don't.
Of seats.
We don't
Just
bite.
sit on the floor unless you want to.
So, you know, we've been talking about some of the regulatory whiplash that we've been going through, especially in California, but certainly not exclusively. And I think we talked earlier, you know, before we met for this panel, and we all agreed that it's incredibly important to stay nimble in this industry. Whether you're getting in fast and pushing the envelope, taking it slow and trying to do it right, you're going to need to be nimble. Things are constantly changing. So, what are some ways that cannabis companies, I'm going to go to you, Ryan, can build flexibility into their business plans?
I guess first thing, and I think a few people have mentioned it, is make sure you're hiring the right people that have the ability to, that are humility. Humility is probably the biggest thing that you want to hire for in this industry right now. And, you know, I spoke about the old industry, and it was an industry where, again, there wasn't much regulation. Humility wasn't often rewarded as much. You know, everybody's a master grower out there if you've been growing for more than one harvest, apparently. But you know, so get folks who are who have some humility, who are humble, who can have a great idea. You can start executing on it, and then suddenly you realize either A, it's, you know, if you're lucky, you realize with some time that it's not going to work, that you can actually adjust off and change your strategy. Or B, in the moment, realize, hey, we have to stop doing this right now, and it sucks, and we spent some money on it, and yes, it was a great idea, but it's not going to work out. We have to move So I would say that's the biggest thing. And then, yeah, just understanding either hiring consultants or if you're lucky, having somebody on staff that can really understand the rules and regulations and can go through. And I mean, even me, I have a public policy degree from Harvard, and I have to sit there and read these things 15, 20 times over a course of a couple of days to make sure that, there's no gaps to my understanding. And what's good, too, is when you do read it, you'll see the other gaps in there that either act as flags to, hey, I have to plan for the potentiality of them filling this gap in one of 3 or 4 different ways, or, this is a gap that I feel I can, take advantage of. It's ethically, okay to do. It's fine. Nobody's going to get hurt by it, and it's not something that's going to get closed, right as I'm about to get there.
Thank you. And Jennifer, how do you encourage people to?
I think that's all really wise. I look at things also from what's called in like the risk management industry is ERP, but enterprise risk management, and understanding that you don't have to just be as good as the rules are in your different location. Actually, it's really good to go a lens up higher and even internationally and seeing where have you found the best packaging, the best types of disclosures, the best ways of building your infrastructure, because sometimes just meeting the bare minimums is not the best thing to do, because building in flexibility is if you can be the best and create the best and be 3 or 4 steps ahead, that may give you a little bit of time to comply. Sometimes it doesn't always fix all your problems, of course, but I think that's a really important thing is, try to really be better than the rules so you can be agile to when those rules change, because the rules are going to change. And if you are in California, I will bet you anything, these rules are going to change a lot. I experienced 282 rule changes in 2016 in Oregon alone. I think about 13 of them were related to packaging that impacted me financially, and I mean in the multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars of loss. It's really painful. It's really, really, really painful. And another thing to add flexibility, I would just always think about how can you build multiple layers of monetization strategies within your business. I think you really have to have an option A, an option B, and an option C, and I'm not encouraging people to pivot. I'm encouraging people to test out different strategies. So if something in their business is challenged or paused, you have a couple different things backing you up. And I think that's just normal investment, advice being be diversified, but really thoughtfully craft your monetization strategies and have different layers of those throughout your organization. As you're building the company, it's much easier to fix them than to be reactive, or to create them than to reactively fix them.
Absolutely. Alexis, how has Dr. Kirkland Therapeutics ensured that it stays nimble in this difficult time?
Well, luckily they hired me. So I look at things at a 100,000-foot level, and I plan for the worst. I'm a person of excellence, so I want the brand to be a brand of excellence, and that requires, foresight. It requires really just thinking outside the box, and going to what you're saying, just definitely look at the worst case scenario when it comes to restrictions and legislative and regulatory, and mirror that. Because you can always, over time, come back down, but it's really hard to ramp back up, especially when you've already ordered your packaging and you have product ready to go on the shelves.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I'm going to ask one more question of each of the panelists, the same question. I'm going to give you a minute each to answer, and then we're going to have like 5 minutes to take some questions from the audience. So think about what you want to ask this panel of experts. And my question is just, where do you see the industry in 5 or 10 years? Sharif.
Historically, the medical cannabis movement started here in the Bay Area and California as a whole, so I'll just start there. I think California will retake its position as the leader in the global cannabis market. California, just like France, has created almost every type of alcohol that we know of and we drink today. California will retake its position. Thank you, Colorado, for opening the door, but the reality is that all of the thought leadership that got us to this point started here. I mean, a lot of the Colorado companies were people moving from these original Bay Area dispensaries. So I think that you'll see a separation in what the market is rewarding. They'll go after either the very top boutique products, super high quality, and you'll see a bunch of value products, commercial grade products enter into the market. Everyone that's kind of running in the middle, likely to be eliminated. You'll see the consolidation of dispensaries across the country. You're already seeing it with people like MedMen. I don't really see a super bright future in what Canada is doing today. They're growing in greenhouses to create extracts to make downstream products. That is not a very efficient process. They should be growing outdoor under the sun. If you're going after biomass, I think the United States, there's also some issues there with looking to international demand that doesn't truly exist yet. Most places that have demand also have supply. So there's a lot of things that are going to be changing over the next few years. I expect software to connect the dots and facilitate growth. Starting in California and then moving out and eventually turning this into a heterogeneous, commoditized market where products are traded between countries on a future type exchange.
All right, thanks.
That was
Dr.
over. That was over a minute, buddy. That's awesome.
Can't get these ideas in a minute.
You got it. Dr. Lay, what do you see?
I'm very biased. I want to see medical research across the board. I want to be able to feel confident that the brand that we're building now and the brands that we help, it becomes efficacy. Research has to be the next word when you say cannabis, and the why behind we do what we do. We all should come together and really understand and promote that. The doctors that are, Cicely and Goldstein out there to really understand what they're putting their efforts into. And they're leveraging their licenses, a medical license right now for everyone that takes cannabis right now, recreational or medical. So the next 5 to 10 years, as operators and supply chain experts and business success stories, we need to do research. And how does it help, why does it help, and put it on the ballot and vote for it as a medical product, period.
Both these guys got claps. I have to, and I tell you, this is something too that when I sit here and think about this, I'm just the way my brain works. It's hard for me to predict 5, 10 years because there's so many possibilities and different ways this can go. I mean, I do believe there's going to be, and I think it's going to be sooner than people expect, some kind of federal policy change that opens up interstate, commerce and access to this plan. I think it's going to go down to the states, a state-by-state basis. But that opens other doors as to, hey, is it going to be free trade across state borders? Or are some states, let's say California, going to get protectionist? Because, I do think, and I don't know if we have to do that, but I do think I agree with you that California is going to be the leader in creating cannabis products. But we might just be brands. There might be other places, Kentucky, and I'm working in some places in Appalachia that are growing a lot of hemp, but they can also grow the commoditized side of this industry, which is going to happen. You're going to have a lot of commodity oils out there, and then you're going to have, it's going to bifurcate to a higher end, cut flowers and maybe some cut oils and sauces and extracts and everything. And then, the international piece, how that's going to play out. And I'll just interesting anecdote, and I'm probably going over my minute, but I was talking to somebody a couple of months ago who grew up, and I believe it was Turkmenistan, when it was a Soviet Socialist Republic. And she was telling me, and her family had been a family of herbal, doctors and medicines, and they prescribed herbs and everything. And probably, up until the late 60s or something, cannabis extracts and hemp extracts were part of these, apothecary things they would put together. And then this just blew my mind, because of U.S. domestic, frankly, racially driven policy, the one thing the Soviets, I guess, could get behind when they brought it to the UN was, okay, I guess that's bad. We'll outlaw it too. Because she said she never saw anybody consuming it. She never heard of anybody using it. But she thought it was just as bad as, heroin, which, there were poppies and stuff like that. So a little bit more familiar with cocaine, these horrible things that were, an American problem. So it's going to be really interesting to see. I think the federal change will actually drive international policy as well. And then, exactly how's that coming into play? And we're already looking at interstate, how that's going to play out federally. So yeah, I'm not leaving you with anything wise here. I'm leaving you with a bunch of potential problems. But again, the key is to just be flexible, and at the end of the day, love what you're doing, and like we all said and agreed, understand that this is a magical special plant, and that it is going to be a lot of hard work, and it's not going to be for the money, trust me. There will be some people who get rich doing this, but it's not going to be, like everybody thinks. Everybody's going to be walking around showing up for us. And it's also, it's very, very, very hard.
If you like sleeping, this is not your industry at all. I think the next 5 years, just from my lens, which again is more of the macro lens internationally, is I really think that this plant is going to go into different nations and different countries and provide some tremendous economic stability and revitalization. I think that unless the contingency here, unless the U.S. and challenges and add some options for 280E and the tax structures here in California improve, I don't see this as a place for any business to flourish. I don't understand the economics of how you possibly could, but then again, I don't know. So, and I do teach private equity at Harvard, so I think I know a little bit about economic structures, so just a little bit. So I just don't, the math doesn't add up to me. I'm looking at nations like Canada and seeing as tremendous opportunities for international exportation, distribution, internationally branded products. I think that it's the opposite. I know it's so opposite to you, what you're saying, but this is a very expensive state to do anything in. And so I just look at how can I make as much money as possible, because I want to give it away. I love money. Money's great. I want to give as much of it away. That's why I want to earn so much of it for this industry. So we have lobbying, so we have policy change, so we have medical research. So I'm just trying to, get people healthy and get people affordable access to this plant all over the world.
All right,
So,
Alexis.
I concur with everything the panel said. My outlook on the next 5 years, and I don't want to cry, I see that the culture, or the reason why we even have commercial cannabis now, is going to be gone. The small farmers are going to be wiped out. Unfortunately, I see that the medical side of the industry, the reason why we have cannabis, is probably going to be wiped out solely due because of the economics and the streamlining of just having adult use. What we've seen just this year with the BCC and the regulatory framework that's came out, there's no longer events. You can no longer have consumption events. We did pass a bill a couple of weeks ago, AB 2020, which is going to allow to have events on property that is not a state fair, which that will give us a little bit more flexibility. But in the city of Los Angeles, they're not looking at doing anything until 2020. So again, I see that the smart farmers are probably going to be pushed out. The reason why we have cannabis, which is back in 1996 because of the HIV and AIDS epidemic, all that history, all that knowledge is just going to be put aside because of big business.
All right, so there's your prediction for the future. We have time for 2 questions, and I saw your hand first.
Thank you. My name is Becca Dubois. My company is CanAccount Pro. I do accounting for cannabis and taxes in the U.S. and cannabis in Canada. And my question to you is, what role does failing to have accurate accounting data, burn rate, cash flow, and budgeting have in the failure or success of your businesses?
Oh, I'd love to answer that possibly. The reputational risk of that alone will take you completely out of this industry. It eliminates your ability to go public. So if that's your strategic exit and that's how you think you're going to cash out your investors that have been kind enough to give you their money in this crazy industry, I don't even see that as a question, honestly. If you're not here and you cannot do it right, get out of the business. Get out.
If you don't have in-house controller, in-house accountant, in-house CPA, or a well-versed cannabis accounting firm, you will not survive 1 year in this industry. I guarantee you that. It is not simple.
Nor should you.
The complexities of California tax law surrounding cannabis are unseen in any other industry, and they're unseen in any other state. I mean, we're responsible for about 1 in 4 transactions in California. We spent a lot of time to develop correct taxation calculations. And to be honest, I don't think that everybody in the state is doing it right. And I don't think the state knows how to deal with that yet. They created a utopian vision of what the rollout of regulation was going to look like, and they didn't think about all the details. And this is going to be one of the changes that occurs, because the idea that you can charge excise tax on cost is causing a lot of trouble for the people that...
The one thing we agree on.
Yay! They finally came together.
See, cannabis brings people together. You see the power of cannabis?
All right, one more question. Yes.
The author of Black Swan, Nicholas Nassim Taleb, talks about the idea of kind of fragility, like things, industries, or systems that might be fragile, which could have an accelerated destruction, right? Like when you hit like a hammer on like a window or something on glass, and then eventually if you hit it hard enough, it shatters. And then a lot of people think that the opposite of fragile is robust, where something that can withstand the hitting, but it's actually not. It's actually the opposite of fragility is anti-fragile, where the system gains from disorder. So for example, if an airplane crashes, then other airplanes are likely to not crash as much as well. Like, so the system gains, so the failure of the subsystem optimizes the system as a whole. So do you guys see cannabis kind of more of as like a robust industry, as fragile, as anti-fragile? And if so, do you kind of see it being disproportionately favoring those that are kind of more well capitalized? And by that I mean, like, do you see that the failures of smaller farmers are not going to benefit other smaller farmers as much as it is those who are kind of waiting in the back and just being like lost leaders?
The only thing I could say is it's just immature. It's just an immature industry. That's it.
We're in our infancy. It's been about 4 years that it's been really out in the forefront and been mainstream. So yeah, I agree.
And that's not a good or bad thing.
It's
It's
not.
not. It's actually beautiful potentiality,
Yep.
really.
Like the cannabis industry can be whatever you want it to be, depending on your perspective, depending on how long you've been in the industry. We've been in this for 15 years. The reason why I'm sitting on this panel and in this position without, taking on $1 of investor money is because, previously, in the early days, the industry favored being bold. So as we have two different perspectives as people that are just now entering the industry, which it requires calculation and precision and risk management. Those are not the things that got us to this point. So it's really just about perspective. Yeah, fragile, anti-fragile, it depends on your network, it depends on who you know, it depends on how you're able to execute on the vision that you have. I mean, you should know that anything is possible, right? So, what the reality is really just in your perspective. It's different for me, it's different for him, it's different for him, and it's different for these two fun ladies at the end.
I want to do a follow-up. So in regards to a farm failing, I think that empowers the other farmers to come together to have a unified voice. What has happened over the last 2 years is that there are a lot of organizations, but they're all fighting with themselves. There's not a one unified voice. So when we take away the ego, take away looking at the greed, and get back to the patience over profit. I know most people are going to shoot me for that, but patience over profit. And I think that I see us now as we get closer to 2019 with the final regs coming out, we are as a community coming together. You're seeing a lot more of the organizations coming together and working in unity. Because we need to have one voice, and we're all on the same team. We want to have safe, clean access medicine for patients.
No, look, I just want to make a comment about the small guys. So the reality is, as a dispensary operator, the reality is that small guys aren't being wiped out of the market. People that are producing small amounts of low-quality product that can't perform and can't compete are being wiped out of the market. Right now, there is actually a shortage of small, boutique, high-grade products in the market. The prices of cannabis almost doubled on July 1st. So to think that small farmers are out of the industry. That's an absolute farce. If you are producing high-quality cannabis, you are making more money than ever. You are in high demand. And if you are a small farmer who isn't in that category, get there quick because you will lose your farm. It's that simple.
All right, Dr. Lay, Ryan, did you have anything to add?
Whew, it's getting hot up here. Wow. I will add this, that, we're here to learn, to share, go out there and do the best you can, and just, you know, call us, email us. I mean, that's what we're here for. I think we agree on that as a panelist. But have fun. This is a fun time, and this is California, so we're, as Californians, let's have fun and let's support each other. I mean, that's, I think.
I agree. As bad as it gets, at the end of the day, just go outside, drive up the hill, take a look at the vista. But yeah, going, you know, to talk about the small operations out there. Again, it's going to be those who are, you know, flexible enough to understand and humble enough to be able to understand what type of business that, you know, they're going to be able to achieve, at least in the short and medium term run, and go for that. You know, change your practices to create, you know, smaller, high quality batches, as opposed to, again, trying to compete with and be that bifurcation on the high end small batch quality side. Because yeah, as far as most cultivation, it's going to be, unfortunately, big, very well capitalized folks. Because even down, as you get down to the consumer, I mean, it's still, like cannabis is still, you know, the taxes are going to go down, but not that much. Cannabis is still pretty expensive to where I think it's going to eventually have to be the, you know, the, when it gets to that federal, when it's basically on par with alcohol consumption, which I actually do see happening, you know, down the road. So.
All right, that's the end. Thank you so much. Big round of applause for our panelists. Thanks for coming.